that's why we do keep hearing the name Emi Martinez linked with a move to Chelsea. What's the latest here, James?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because there's another part of this equation, which is Mike Penders, the goalkeeper that they had at Strasbourg, who's come in this season, and I've been told that they view him very highly and they see him as being a future number one at Stamford Bridge quite soon, in fact. But whether it's quite this early on, I'm not so sure. He's only 21. He's not played a lot of top-level football, and it would be a huge ask, really, to say you're now going to be the number one after Robert Sanchez has started the season so disappointingly. So Emi Martinez is an interesting one. I think he's been offered to Chelsea rather than Chelsea have gone and actually looked at options. I think everybody could see what happened at Craven Cottage. It's not the first time there have been question marks about Robert Sanchez. I think it's pretty clear that if you're going to try and, I don't think anybody's thinking Chelsea are going to win the league, but if you're going to go and push to try and win the league, get into the Champions League, I'm not sure Robert Sanchez is your goalkeeper who's going to do that. So there is an opportunity there to upgrade the squad and improve the starting 11. Emi Martinez, what is he, 34, big personality. It makes sense. It's a sort of 2+2 situation, isn't it? He clearly, his Villa future is very uncertain. Chelsea have a short-term problem. They could probably find some kind of compromise where he comes in for the season, or maybe they give him a 2-year deal and they review it next summer. But they've been very clear behind the scenes that they really see Mike Penders as being somebody who can come in and establish himself. And they've really got a judgment call to make now. Do they trust a 21-year-old goalkeeper? Do they persevere with Robert Sanchez? Do they think actually this is a bit of a one-off? I mean, it's not, but maybe they think it's a one-off at the start of the season. Let's see where we are in 6-8 weeks' time, and maybe Penders with some more training. Maybe he works with the coaching staff. Obviously, with Xabi Alonso, who's only just gone in there. Maybe they think actually he could be ready. But it's just all come at the wrong time. I think if this had been a year later, I don't think Chelsea would even be thinking about signing another goalkeeper. I think they'd probably be giving Penders a go, but it would be a big call to put him in now at this stage of his career.
I know which option I wouldn't be taking would be the persevering Robert Sanchez.
Well, it wasn't really a glowing endorsement there from James himself. No. He said it very politely.
No, because look, he does some really good things, but unfortunately they are all battered away by some of the bad decisions he makes with the ball at his feet, some of the saves that he should make that he lets in. He's a bit of a liability. He wasn't always number one at Brighton. I mean, he wasn't always the number one at Brighton with Jason Steele. So, he's never been, certainly in recent years, the bona fide number one. He just is at the moment at Chelsea because of who they've got as sort of backup goalkeeper. But I think if you want some consistency behind a back four and some confidence behind a back four, it's not Robert Sanchez.
OK, let's talk about Nicolas Jackson right now, joining Aston Villa from Chelsea, agreeing that deal there. And this would see Nico Jackson back up with Unai Emery, who he was with at Villarreal. But there's been some surprise in this move. How's it been taken in England?
Well, I mean, we sort of got wind of this probably the back end of last week that Villa were probably going to sell Ollie Watkins, and therefore they were looking around for alternatives and for replacements. And Nicolas Jackson's name came up as you mentioned there, Kay. The Emery link I think is significant, but also they need somebody who can come in and hit the ground running. And knows the league, which obviously Nicolas Jackson does, and his career is really, I mean, he's had a quite remarkable 12 months really when you think about the Bayern move and then Chelsea trying to call it off at the last minute because they got an injury right at the start of the season, and then obviously he stayed there, and it's been I actually think there's half a player in Nicolas Jackson. I'm not sure he's necessarily right out of the top drawer, but I think he could come in and do a very good job for Villa, and Villa are in that position where, because of the squad cost ratio rules, the financial rules that govern the Premier League teams, they have to do a lot of trading every year. They have to trade quite heavily, and it's a big job for him because that Europa League final squad has been gutted, really. The starting 11 has had the spine kind of ripped out of it when you think about the players that have gone, Konsa and Tielemans and Watkins. So it's a big ask, but it does make a lot of sense. And again, Chelsea have ended up getting a very good fee for a player that they don't want, and they are starting to make a bit of habit of that, I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's again, it's the Unai Emery link. He knows the player, but also he was one of those players, a bit like Marcus Rashford, when he got this move to Barcelona. You were like, he's one to watch. And actually Rashford did pretty well. He didn't get the move that he wanted because Gordon came in and blah, blah, blah. And with Nico Jackson, it was very similar. He's going to Bayern Munich? But actually, he did okay as a backup for Harry Kane, if I'm being honest about it. Now, like James said, would he be your number one go-to guy for a lot of people? Probably not. But at times he does some good stuff. And Villa are in a position where, you know, they're pretty much selling everything. So Unai Emery needs bodies in there. Now, if we're talking about price tags, there's no point talking about price tags in this day and age because everybody's going for stupid money. It's about getting somebody in that can do a job for you, and the manager knows the player's capabilities. But to be fair to Nicolas Jackson, when he went to Bayern Munich, whenever he was needed, when Harry Kane needed a rest or needed a partner beside him, he wasn't overawed by that, to be fair to him. Now, how he got on at Villa, I don't know. It's just a shame Ollie Watkins, that scenario, going to Saudi Arabia. I get it, it's the money and all that sort of stuff, but you're really taking yourself out of, the Premier League, the global audience, and you're going to, like a lot of these players that are still kind of in their prime, they're going out to Saudi Arabia to get the money, but nobody bats an eyelid. Nobody really bats an eyelid. They could go out there and score 50 goals. Nobody'd bat an eyelid. So it's a bit of a shame from Villa for that perspective, but you have to respect the player if he wants to go and get a big payday. Yeah,
getting back to Chelsea sales though, James, they're doing so well, it seems, again, pulling these sales off. How are they doing it?
Well, they'll argue it's the contract model, starting that they sign these players on 6, 7, 8, 9-year deals in some cases, and that protects them as an asset value. And without getting too kind of technical about amortization and how sort of the accounting works, it means that what they call the book value of the player. So if you look at the balance sheet today, basically a transfer fee is divided by the length of the contract. So because the contracts are so long, the book value of these players are quite low. So Liam Delap's another really good example. They bought him for 30 million. They've sold him to Forest for, I think it's 45. But his book value would have gone down because he's been there for a year. So actually the profit that they've made in accounting terms, which is the really significant thing with Chelsea, because everyone's going, how are they spending all this money? How do they keep, throwing 117 million at Villa for Morgan Rogers and all that? That's the key figure, really. It's the amortisation that they've been very clever with, and it's why the regulations have changed, where you can now only amortise contracts over a 5-year period rather than the 8 or 9s. But Chelsea, of course, have done that prior to the rule change, so they've got quite a lot of leeway that other clubs didn't have. So that's sort of the nucleus of it. But they've also, Delap is a good example of a player they thought had obvious resale value if it didn't work out. He was young, he's English, he'd had a good season. If at Ipswich Town in the Premier League, if it didn't work out, as it clearly hasn't, then he's still going to maintain a lot of that market value. Now, I think Forest have probably overpaid for him based on what we've seen of him, which I don't mean as any disrespect to him. We don't know how good he can be. He's still a young lad, but I think the market has just taken a jump this summer. I think what's happened with some of the big deals in general, the Elliot Anderson price tag, the Morgan Rogers price tag. I've spoken to some pretty senior recruitment executives who are surprised about the clubs that have been prepared to meet these valuations, because a lot of these valuations have been put on players to ward off clubs, to sort of say, look, we don't want to sell Morgan Rogers, so we think he's worth 117 million, which obviously significantly is 1 million more than Elliot Anderson went for, because he became the kind of benchmark for the summer. And Chelsea went, all right, we'll pay it. And as soon as a club does that, the sort of inflationary effect for everyone else is quite significant. But, as I say, Chelsea have really capitalised on that contractual trick that they pulled off when the new owners came in 4 years ago.